Thank you so much, Brent, for spearheading to bring me here to the community. Thank you, Allison and the ZOA, for hosting. Thank you to all the sponsors. I don't remember all the names, but thank you very, very much. Thank you to Temple Bethel and to Reb Tuvia for hosting the event, and wonderful to meet you and learn about your community here. I want to start by saying what I believe is the most important thing that every single Jew should know, but no one's telling us. And it's very simple. The third Jewish commonwealth of the Jewish people, the modern Jewish state of Israel, which is 75 years young and over 3,500 years old, is the solution. Yes. It's not the problem. It's the solution to Jewish identity. It's the solution to combating anti-Semitism, not fighting anti-Semitism. That's a misnomer, and we'll get into this. It's the solution to peace in the Middle East. And it's the solution to world peace. Who's telling you that? We are the most unbelievable country in the world. I mean, I'd have to stand here for over 2 hours just to list all the reasons why we are the most unbelievable country in the world in so many ways. And this, despite the fact that we're one of the most persecuted and oppressed people of the world. 2,000 years of continuous exile and persecution. Exile and persecution. And again, exile and persecution. There's a reason the Jewish people are called the Wandering Jews. I mean, I don't know how many people here have a heritage of over 100 years of their family in America, but my guess is very few. And I imagine that what your great-grandparents or great-grandparents, wherever they were, they probably didn't have a 100-year heritage wherever they were living, wherever it was in Europe or even the Middle East potentially. And yet, as the mindset of the Western world, where our kids and grandkids are being embedded on a daily basis by this oppressor methodology. You know what? Agree with it, don't agree with it. I'm not going to go into that. All right? I'm going to try my best not to go politics, even though everything about Israel and the Jewish people is politics. I'm going to try my best. And I'm sure even with everything I say, some people won't agree with everything. And you'll disagree. And afterwards, ask me questions, challenge me, please. Please. But even with the educational methodology of oppressed oppressor and human rights and indigenous rights, do you know who should be the poster child? Literally, the posters in every single classroom in America today, universities, high schools, elementary schools, the poster child of the one people that can inspire every other people to come out of oppression, to come out of persecution. It's the Jewish people, folks. We're the only indigenous people in humanity that after 2,000 plus years of continuous exile and persecution, we have returned to our ancestral homeland, with our ancestral holy sites, with sovereignty in our ancestral homeland, with an army finally to defend ourselves as we have been defenseless for over 2,000 years of continuous exile and persecution. Shouldn't that be the poster child of the oppressor methodology? Why focus on wallowing in being oppressed when you could be inspired by a people that represents being oppressed, doesn't focus on it, because the Jewish people are focused on positivity, focused on moving forward, focused on building. That's what the Jewish state of Israel is today, folks. And you know how many years it took us to do this? Less than 80 years, we are a superpower in the world. A superpower! If you would have told your parents, back in the 60s and 70s, you know, one day, you know that little country Israel, it's going to be a regional superpower, the Jewish state of Israel. It's going to be the model ally of the greatest empire in the world today, the United States of America, right? The United States of America is like what Rome used to be, what Greek is. It's the empire. It's the empire of the world, right? And in the Pentagon Strategic National Document put out 2-3 weeks ago, there was only one country mentioned 10 times, singled out as a model ally of the United States. Which country? Israel. The Jewish nation. The Jewish nation that suffered 2,000 years of persecution, almost annihilated in the Holocaust, almost annihilated on October 7th, 2023, which I'll get to later on, is now the model ally of the greatest empire in the world. And our parents wouldn't have believed that back in the 60s or the 70s. What about our grandparents or great-grandparents in Europe in the Holocaust? If you would have told them that, would they have believed that? No. And it's not just being a superpower because we have a strong army. We're a superpower in helping the world. We're a superpower in helping medically. We're a superpower in foreign aid to tragedies, even in enemy countries like Turkey. We're a superpower in technology. We're a superpower in green energy. And today, our children and grandchildren are being taught that we're the most evil country in the world, instead of being instilled with the pride of what our little people in less than 80 years have succeeded in accomplishing, that our parents and grandparents would have called us crazy if we would have told them. We're living in the twilight zone. There is no connection between reality of what we, our children and grandchildren, are fed in the media and in our classrooms to reality. No connection. Not only is it not connected, it's 180 degrees different. Almost every single headline you see in the daily news, and not just the non-Jewish news, even in Jewish news, I promise you, most of the things are almost 180 degrees different. They might have some of the facts correct, but the context is different. And the news is being written in such a way for you to think bad things about your fellow Jews, think bad things about the Jewish state of Israel. Is the Jewish state of Israel perfect? Is any country perfect? We're living in America, right? I'm sure patriotic Americans, right wing, left wing, doesn't make a difference. You love your country, you want it to be a good country. Is America perfect? No. Israel isn't perfect either. We're a country. You know, I'm an organizational psychologist by trade. No person is perfect. No relationship is perfect. Everything has challenges. But yet our children and grandchildren are being taught that because of what they're perceived as problems with Israel, there might be some truth in some things. There might be. But do you throw the baby out with the bathwater? Throw away your identity with your own homeland, with your own people, because of some things you might disagree with? They might be true, might be not true. Not even going there. But that's the state we are in today. Some of the worst enemies of the Jewish people and the Jewish state of Israel are Jews. Many of the organizations on campuses or off campuses leading many non-Jews in the protests, or non-Jews and Jews in the protests, are Jews. Brought up in the Jewish community, even gone to Jewish education, even gone to Jewish camps, even gone to Israel. And it makes me want to bawl with tears. Because every single one of them, any Jew who allows the lie of the day to enter their soul and convince them that the Jewish people and the Jewish state of Israel is the problem, I just cry over what happened to them and where they're going and where their lives is going and where their families are going, because they essentially are cutting off the umbilical cord between their lineage and the Jewish people. And not only are they being lost to the Jewish people, they are missing out on the biggest miracle of humanity today. And that's so sad. Because Israel is the solution. Now I want to start with some good news. Okay? Because the talk tonight is going to be missiles to miracles. And I hope I don't put anyone to sleep, because you're going to want to hear these missiles to miracles. I promise you. And you're going to end up, hopefully, being even more energized than how you came in this evening. But I want to share with you two pieces of information that personally make me very happy, that highlights the state of the Jewish people in Israel today that doesn't get across in the media. Story number one. I was on my way to the airport, coming here to America. My wife was driving me. And I took a very boring video clip, 4 seconds, while driving on the highway on my way to the airport from where I live. Oh yeah, I didn't introduce myself yet. I'll get to that. Don't worry about it. And you should ask me, why? What's so exciting about a 4-second video clip driving on the highway? Because literally, if you watch the video, and I've showed some people this, all you see is a 4-lane highway. Guess what? The miracle is, it's a 4-lane highway. All right? I remember driving on that road when my family moved to Israel in 1990, and it was a tiny lane and a half. No traffic whatsoever. Hardly any Jews living in that area. Today, it's a 4-lane highway.
What area?
I live in the Judean hills. I'm a proud resettler in Judea and Samaria. And again, politics aside, no Jew can deny we would not have the Jewish people if King David did not establish the first capital of the Jewish people in Hebron. We would not have the Jewish people if the first tabernacle was not set up in Shiloh. Jacob in the Bible would not have had his dream if he would have not had been in the city of Beit El. These are all cities in Judea and Samaria. That's our heritage. Today we have over 500,000 Jews living in Judea and Samaria. That's the future of the Jewish people. And again, I can go into the politics, I can go into settlements, I can go into everything. Ask me any question you want. But we're back home, folks. On a political level, I have no problem with someone who says, you want to know something? I know it's our homeland. I know we have a right to live there. But maybe it's worth making peace. Maybe it's worth the price making peace. But you want to know what the problem is in the Jewish community? We have too many of our own fellow Jews and Jewish organizations who won't even say that. They'll say it's not ours. We don't belong there. We're occupiers. It belongs to some other people that actually didn't come there until a few hundred years ago. Even if that, most of them didn't even come about 100 or so years ago. But you see the difference in how I just defined the issue? There's one saying, okay, this is reality, and there's a political issue that we might have to deal with. And there's another one where our own people, our own organizations, deny our own identity, deny our own homeland. That's a problem. It's a huge problem. It's a problem that so many groups come to Israel and won't go visit our ancestral locations of Hebron, Beit El, or Shiloh. Guess what? Tel Aviv was only created 100 years ago. That's not Jewish history. So yeah, it represents the startup nation, and you can go visit Israel and be excited about Israel and what we're doing today, but you don't internalize the depth of our identity as a nation and our historic connection to our homeland that makes us Jews. Because where does the word Jew come from? Judea. That's where I live. And again, I have no problem. Someone says, you want to know something? I know we should be able to live there. But geopolitical issues, and there are Arabs that live there, and you know what? So maybe right not now. Maybe it's not possible now, or we have to come to some region. That's okay. That's not the discussion that's taking place in the Jewish community for decades. The discussion in the Jewish community is cutting the floor out from under us, of our identity. You cannot stand up for the Jewish people if you deny our connection to our ancestral homelands. You can't. So what's the second good piece of news? All right, so that first piece of news, the fact that we have a 4-lane highway in the Judean hills. Today you almost have a 4-lane highway from Jerusalem all the way to Hebron. Almost all the way. And I think there's like 1 or 2 sections left. It's mind-boggling. Back in 1967, how many Jews lived in Judea and Samaria? 0. Yud and Rhein. Jews want to go back to it being okay that our ancestral land be Yud and Rhein? Arabs can live as full citizens in Israel, but somehow it's acceptable that Jews should be forbidden to live in our ancestral lands of Judea and Samaria? Like, what liberal mind does that make sense to? Makes no sense. And then you try to have a conversation with our own friends, our own family about this issue, and I want to have the conversation. I really do. I want to talk about the facts. I want to talk logically. But so many of our own people, they don't even want to listen. So brainwashed by a narrative that denies their own identity, that pulls the rug out from under who they are, what they should be proud of. You don't agree with everything? Great, I don't agree with everything of your country. This is the alternate universe we're living in today. So yeah, it's unbelievable news. We have a 4-lane highway in Judea and Samaria. All right? And the future is, and again, after October 7th, there are virtually no Israelis who believe in a 2-state solution. And I find it so hard that so many Americans still do. It's like we're the ones living there paying the price. And I just want to be able to get in front and have talks. I just want to talk. Just want to explain. I'm willing to hear every single concern. Every single concern. I will talk it through. I will sit for hours. If the other person is also willing to sit there in right sound and body and listen. They might not be convinced, but at least have a rational conversation and talk about the facts. We can end up disagreeing, but at least walk away a little more knowledgeable about the facts. And the fact that American Jewry is not willing to accept that a majority of Israelis do not want to even see any Arab in Gaza anymore, ever. Ever. I mean, that's just a fact. It might hurt your sensibilities, but reality has taught us, forget your sensibilities. We care about our lives. There is a man, his name is Avida Bechar. Anyone heard of him? Avida Bechar. A survivor of October 7th. Lived with his family in Kibbutz Be'eri, still lives in Kibbutz Be'eri, hopefully rebuilding his life. Hid with his wife, his son, and his daughter in the safe room. As Hamas terrorists, and as he says himself, not just Hamas terrorists, but Gaza non-combatants, invaded his kibbutz and massacred his community. His wife and son murdered right in front of his eyes in his safe room, shot through the door while he was there trying to hold the door so they wouldn't get in. Him and his daughter's life miraculously was saved. He lost his leg. He has been active in using his voice since October 7th, saying the following. And anyone who wants it, I could send you any one of the video clips of him. He goes, I loved the Gazans. I employed the Gazans. I thought we can have peace with the Gazans. But now that I know who they are, not just Hamas terrorists, but the non-combatant civilians that came into my community, I don't want to see one Gaza in Gaza ever again. Right? But this isn't Avi Abelo talking. This is a survivor of Kibbutz Be'eri on the Gaza border who survived and experienced this with his own eyes. He goes even further. It's unbelievable what Avida Bechar has been saying. And take a minute, and I imagine some people are not going to like what he has to say, but this isn't some right-wing settler like Avi Abelo. This is a somewhat peace activist, believer in everything with Gazans, trusting them, peace with them, okay? This is Avida Bechar talking. And just take a second to internalize the strength this man has to say what he says. He says, and again, it might not be the exact words, but this is the message. He is glad that the massacre happened to him in his community and not to any of the communities in Judea and Samaria. Why? He explains the following, all right? And seriously internalize this. If the massacre had happened in Judea and Samaria, Avidas, he says, I would have thought to myself, it's because they live there. They deserved it. We got to get all Jews out of Judea and Samaria. But because it happened to me, Avida Bechar, a peace-loving political leftist that worked with the Gazans, employed the Gazans, I now know it's not about where we live. It's about who we are. And if it wouldn't have happened to me, I would have never internalized this message. This is a message many Israelis, even those who used to be on the political left, supporting the two-state solution, this is where they've been moved to. There's still political disagreements and arguments and everything. I mean, we're all Jews. 2 Jews, 3 opinions. But in terms of this issue, he is representative not of everybody, but of many. And that message isn't getting across here on the other side of the ocean. I don't think there are that many Jewish organizations, right, left, or center, Orthodox, conservative, or Reform, or non-affiliated, giving voice to that Israeli perspective of the post-October 7th reality we're living in. And it should. Do I know what's going to happen? Because we're still in this war? No, I don't know what's going to. I know what I want to happen. I don't know what's going to happen. I know what I'll be advocating to happen, but I don't know what's going to happen. But I definitely hope that'll be something based on reality and not on our fragile sensibilities, disconnected from reality. So that that was just finishing good news number one about the 4-lane highway. Okay, good news number two, and again, not everything is 100% good. It's bittersweet. Driving here to this event, I was listening to a current events news report analysis, and I heard the following good news, and I literally teared while driving. 4 widows of the war just got engaged to remarry. Okay? And it's just making me emotional, just reiterating that. With all the sadness we have from this war, from October 7th, from the hostages, we are an unbelievable, resilient people. And I've been traveling back and forth a lot during this war. I've had reserve service, and I probably still would be in reserve service 2+ years, except that every few months I travel to America to speak to communities, to give across what's really going on in Israel. That's also part of my reserve service for my people, for my nation. So I've seen since November 2023, that was my first time in America speaking. Since November 2023, still today, I've seen the difference of how American Jewry has been fed and dealt with this war, and how Israeli Jewry, Israelis, have been fed and dealt with this war. What am I referring to? Thank God all 250 hostages are out of Gaza.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay? No Jew, no Israeli disagrees about that. Okay? Even though there were plenty of news reports trying to say otherwise, trying to divide us politically. Where comes the differentiation between American Jewry and Israeli Jewry? The focus on Israel was not just freeing our hostages, but it was a King David-like spirit of our unbelievable young soldiers today to sacrifice their lives, not just to free the hostages, but to win the war. Okay? So you had a sense of optimism and happiness in Israel, even as every single family knew somebody killed or injured in the war. Just in my own synagogue, we lost 3 soldiers, 1 synagogue, 3 families. And that's on top of losing 4 other members of our synagogue in 2 different terror attacks since 2018. So we have 7 empty seats in our synagogue taken from a 1,400+ year enemy, jihadi Islam, that too many Jews still refuse to identify as an enemy. So we live with this. But still, an atmosphere in Israel. I'll give you a different story to give you the atmosphere. Ready for this? The first anniversary of October 7th, I was invited to a special event in Jerusalem. It was run by an organization, fabulous organization, called Kesher Yehudi. That's an ultra-Orthodox organization that for decades has run programs to bridge the divide between secular and ultra-Orthodox. You ever read that in the media? Right? Okay? Not about religion, not about making the secular religious. No, it's all about just getting to know each other so that the barriers go down. That's pretty simple, right? So this was one of the organizations that after October 7th came forward and started running events for survivors of October 7th for families who lost loved ones, for families of hostages, for survivors of the Nova Festival. They started doing events. Nothing about religion. But it was ultra-Orthodox coming out and having these events together with secular to be there. A sense of support while also bridging the sectarian divide, right? They were so afraid of being blamed, of taking advantage of and pushing religion, that when it came to the first anniversary of October 7th, meaning Simchat Torah, the holiday of Simchat Torah, they decided we're not doing an event. Because perception is 99% of reality, and they didn't want people to perceive, oh my God, they're taking advantage, and they're going to push religion on these secular people who were part of the survivor. They're not all secular, but plenty of secular people, right? Family. So they said, we're not doing anything. And some of the survivors and the families of hostages contacted the organization saying, why aren't you doing an event for the first anniversary? We need this like air. You guys are such a support system. We need this event on Simchat Torah. So in 2 weeks, they put together the event at the Ramada Hotel in Jerusalem. And in Israel, the holiday of Simchat Torah is 1 day, as opposed to 2 days in America. But in Israel, and again, the first night is singing and dancing with the Torah scrolls. And the second night in Israel, even though the holiday is over, we still have more singing and dancing with the Torah scrolls. This time, according to religious Jew Torah law, we can have music and musicians and everything, right? And electricity. So I was invited to the second night of the singing and dancing. It was mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. Ultra-Orthodox. Religious like me. Secular. Traditional. Dancing and singing, holding up signs of the faces of the hostages, of those who were killed at the Nova Festival, together. What was the most powerful song that everyone was singing and dancing to together? I don't know how many of you know this song. Hashem Yitbarach, Tamid Ohev Oti, V'tamid Yeh Li Rak Tov. For those who do not know the Hebrew, this is a song that was the most popular song in Israel. Religious, not as religious, not religious, secular, atheist. All of Israel was dancing and singing to this song, and I witnessed the religious, the ultra-Orthodox, the secular, the survivors, singing and dancing to this song, saying, God loves me, things are going to be good, things are going to be even better. What other nation, after experiencing a tragedy in the middle of war, losing soldiers, and this was also 1 year anniversary, most of the hostages are still in Gaza. Most of our soldiers are still fighting. I have 2 sons fighting in this war. One was in Gaza, Lebanon, Syria. That was his mandatory service. One a reserve soldier. Gaza, Lebanon. He was just sent to Gaza now, literally now, for the 3rd time in this war. We're all fighting. The war's still going on. And the most popular song in Israeli society is God loves us, things will be good. We're a crazy nation. We're a crazy nation because we're connected to God. That's it, folks. You want to be happy? Develop your connection to God. I don't care what rules you do, what rules you don't do. I don't care how much Torah you learn, how much Torah you don't learn. Connect to God. Do you know what the most powerful muscle is in your body?
Brain.
Okay, any doctors here? Brain? Fine. Guess what? I'm not a doctor. I'm going to tell you a different muscle. The most powerful muscle in our body is what I call in Hebrew the emunah muscle. The faith muscle. The faith in God muscle. You know how powerful a faith in God is to help you through your life, to help you raise your children, to help you be a positive factor of positivity and moving forward for your grandchildren. And it's a muscle because you have to work on it. Faith does not come easily. It doesn't come out of the sky. You have to work on it. You have to learn it. You have to follow the people who talk about it, who help you strengthen it. Because life, if one thing is not happy, life is filled with tragedy, I promise you, right? Because at the end of life, you have death. Everyone has it. You have sickness. You have tragedies. But when you work on that faith muscle, you have the power to move forward. It's not a crutch. It's the most powerful vitamin you can have in your life. And that you feel in the air in Israel, in our ancestral homeland, where every holiday that the whole country celebrates is the Jewish holiday. When it's Hanukkah time, the whole country is celebrating Hanukkah, not Christmas with a little menorah next to it, maybe. Right? We're in our natural habitat there. It's God's holy land. It's in the air. Is everyone a believing Jew regardless of religious level? No. But many of us are. Many of us are. And in this war, many more are. We didn't, in most situations, in most countries in the world, you're at war for 2 years. You know how depressed society would be? With the headlines that we were given by our own media. Forget about the media abroad. Our own media. Depressing, demoralizing, dividing. Every single day of this war continues to today. And even with that, thank God most Israelis stopped listening to what we're being told by the mainstream media. Because we're connected to our identity. We're connected to God. It's in the air. And most importantly, we're connected to each other. Despite the headlines every day. And the ultra-Orthodox this, and this scandal, and that scandal. There are always going to be scandals. You want to know how I know why? Because there are always going to be people who are going to want there to be scandals. There are always going to be people who are going to be looking to divide us. And I'm a student of history. And maybe there are professors of history here. Maybe professors of Jewish history. So anyone correct me. But correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think the Jewish people have ever been united since Mount Sinai. Right? And with that, if you really live Israel without turning on the news, without going on social media, without watching YouTube videos, and you just walk the streets of Israel, where you go to the hospital, where you go to tourist sites, and you see the ultra-Orthodox Jews, with the religious Jews, with the secular Jews, with the Muslims, with the Christians. We've never been more united than we are today. I always tell people, don't listen to the media. Don't listen to the latest scandals trying to make you get upset. If you're really concerned about Israel and you're believing the media, then just buy a ticket. I believe it's worth the investment. Come visit and go around the country on your own and talk to people. Some people will talk to you about the issues that bother them, that they're upset about. But you'll see, life is unbelievable. And this is 2+ years at war. And this is how we have a society that even with all of our soldiers who have lost their lives, and all the soldiers who are risking their lives to win this war finally, please God, one day, we have widows remarrying. Because they know, while they'll hold on to the sadness of the loss of their husbands, they're moving forward to continue to raise proud Jewish families with another husband. Maybe even other kids because he's a widow himself or divorcee. Everyone's different. So I wanted to start this talk with those 2 good news stories. Because that really is going to come back at the end. Now let's deal with the real problem. Okay? Here's the real problem, folks. It's not the Middle East. It's not the war. Because We're surrounded by enemies, so there's always going to be something. All right? I'm not worried about our enemies. I'm not worried about the war, because in Israel we know who the enemy is. We still have politicians who don't. We might still have generals who don't. But the people do, and the fighters do. So we'll be okay. We'll be okay. You want to know what the real problem is? The real problem is that Jews around the world, outside of Israel, the Western world, including in America, are living, not witnessing, living the greatest upsurge of Jew hatred in our lives. And no one can tell you why. No one can tell you why. There's not one Jewish organization that's explaining to the Jewish community how come. And to make it even more shocking, the spike happened when? Immediately after the worst tragedy to befall the Jewish people since the Holocaust, October 7th. So on top of the fact of not knowing why, the whole Jewish world are like deer in the headlights, still in total shock. No sympathy, no support, no understanding. What about all the decades of investing in fighting anti-Semitism? How many billions of dollars have been donated by good-hearted Jews to Jewish organizations to fight anti-Semitism? How many initiatives to include Holocaust education in public schools to fight anti-Semitism? How many billions donated for another Holocaust museum? Now in this city, now in that city. And if this anti-Semite, if we could just take him to a Holocaust museum, if we could just have another seminar on the Holocaust for this group, then we'll be able to take care of anti-Semitism. All that money went down in the toilet. Has any Jewish organization had the guts to get in front of a camera and a microphone and say, "Oh my God, we made a mistake, please forgive us. We have to come up with another strategy"? I think the first person to dare say it publicly, at least in the biggest public forum so far in the Jewish world, was Brent Stevens at the 92nd Y in New York City, saying, "No more fighting anti-Semitism, we have to focus on Jewish identity." But it's taken 2+ years for that to be issued publicly by someone with say and name in the Jewish community. And now they're going to have, what's it called when you have two people argue? Debates. Now they're going to have debates about it. Okay, then this next step at the 92nd Street Y is now they're going to have a debate. Someone who's going to say fighting anti-Semitism versus someone like Brent Stevens saying, no, we have to focus on Jewish identity, right? But I haven't heard any Jewish organization that's been trying to raise money to fight anti-Semitism for decades, yet say, we made a mistake, we have to change course. Sorry, we really intended the best and we realized it didn't work. As if everything happening today isn't clear enough that it didn't work. And here, I'm blessed to have been born in America as an American citizen. Blessed. Blessed to have grown up as a Jew in New York City in the 70s and 80s and lived there in the 90s. So blessed. We are probably one of the most blessed generations of Jews in exile in thousands of years. Seriously, I mean, different exiles were pretty good at certain points in time for a few years. Always came to an end. But seriously, since biblical times, since the Second Temple was destroyed 2,000 years ago, the American Jewish community in exile has probably been the most blessed. Total freedom and equality. Like no other generation of Jews living outside of Israel. And yet we are experiencing today an outburst of Jew hatred that no one's explaining to us why it's happening. And I'll tell you exactly why it's happening. Because the Jewish community is still fighting anti-Semitism. What is the focus when you fight anti-Semitism? What are you saying about yourself when you're fighting anti-Semitism? You're saying, I'm a victim. Stop victimizing me. Now, my parents were educators. I dreamt of being an educator. I ended up not, but going into education through media, basically. That's my job. I'm now an educator through my nonprofit organization and using media. But I know there was a book that I grew up, I think it was called Everything I Learned in Kindergarten, something like that, in the educator's area, right? And I think one of the lessons are like, how do you deal with a bully? You don't deal with a bully by saying, please bully, don't hit me. Please bully, these are the real things. No, this is my lunch. You don't use facts to stop a bully. You have to have the guts to stand up to the bully. The second you stand up to the bully, that won't necessarily stop the bully from bullying, but it'll help you continue on and not be afraid of the bully and not let the bully impact you and your psyche and your self-esteem and your life. So guess what the problem is? Our Jewish world is still focused on us being victims. And I'll tell you something else that shouldn't be a surprise. There's no fighting anti-Semitism because we're never going to beat it. There always was anti-Semitism. There always is anti-Semitism, even if it's not that we see it. And again, I grew up in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. I unfortunately didn't see any anti-Semitism. Other people saw some of it. Like, yeah, I grew up in Manhattan. I have friends who grew up in the Bronx, and they did experience anti-Semitism in the Bronx. Not to the level of today, but there always is. And guess what? There always will be anti-Semitism. Always. And we'll get to that in a second. So, fighting anti-Semitism is a misnomer. You can't fight anti-Semitism. Don't give a cent to any organization that says we're fighting anti-Semitism. It's a losing battle. But what can we do? We could overcome anti-Semitism. And how do we overcome anti-Semitism? By stopping to focus on being victims and starting to focus on being victors. We are the most inspiring story of humanity, and our own children and grandchildren are not being told that. They're not being taught that. Not by our Jewish organizations, not by our Jewish institutions, not by our schools, and I come from the modern Orthodox world, not even in the modern Orthodox world, not in our camps, not in our programs, because everything about Israel is political, and no one wants to say the wrong thing so as not to offend other people. And it's killing us. It's literally killing us. Maybe not killing physically, but it's killing the Jewish souls of our children and grandchildren because they are growing up feeling embarrassed about their Jewish identity, feeling embarrassed about the most inspiring story of humanity today, the rebirth of the Jewish nation as a sovereign nation state back in our ancestral homeland. They're being deprived of the biggest story to help them feel proud and overcome the anti-Semitism that cannot be beat. So I try to be part of the solution, and that's what the Pulse of Israel is all about. Helping Jews, and plenty of non-Jews as well, but even with all of my non-Jewish viewers and followers, the most important people to reach are as many Jews as possible to save them from being lost to the Jewish people by providing them a deeper understanding on a daily basis of what we are experiencing so that they will have that pride. They might not agree with everything I say or everything I analyze, but at least have a deeper understanding that things are complex and not necessarily to believe every single divisive, scandalous headline they read in the papers or or see on social media. And this is a lifeline to so many today, because we're literally losing hundreds, if not thousands, of Jewish young souls every day because they're not being given the story of how we are victors. Not to have what's the word I'm looking for? Sometimes I forget my English. I totally forgot. When you're like so proud, you're haughty. Give me a word. Arrogance. Not to give them arrogance, but to give them the based feeling of pride in their identity so they can walk with their heads held high. So that if they're on a college campus and an anti-Israel agitator starts screaming at them, genocide, baby killer, they won't be impacted by that. Because you know what the biggest reason most Jews today, no matter what age, adult, university student, high school student, why they're not standing up for themselves? Not only do they not know anything, because even if you feed them the facts, right? And I was talking to Brent about this earlier. Brent and Gene, right? Even if you present them the facts, they have a dilemma. If they choose to believe the facts and understand that while Israel might not be perfect, but there's an explanation for why they're being lied to or misinformed to without the context of the situation of the news they're hearing or the social media post they're hearing, and they actually should be proud of Israel and the Jewish people, and not think it's a genocide, baby-killing thing that actually our enemies do to Jews, Christians, Kurds, Druze, Alawites, almost every day across the Middle East, especially in Syria, and Iranians killing their own people. But the double standard is blatant, so they don't care about anything. They just call us evil. But why can't they accept the facts? The second they accept the facts that Israel might not be perfect, but at least trying its best to be the best moral country to win a war against an evil genocidal cult, while also trying not to harm innocent people that actually aren't that innocent because they're being used as human shields by their own people. But if they would accept the facts, you know what would happen to them? They'd be ostracized by their friends. They'd be ostracized by their family. They'd be ostracized by their neighbors. Maybe by their parents or their children. It has nothing to do with the facts. It's all psychology, folks. It's all an identity crisis. So many of our own. I'm not just talking to you, I'm talking to myself. People we all know, whether it's family, friends, neighbors, they're just so stuck in being associated with a value system that's been politicized and spreading misinformation about our own identity, our own people, their own brothers, their own family, their own ancestral homeland, that it's so hard to make the jump and accept the facts, which would disconnect them from their social structure today. So not only do we have to inspire these kids as early as possible? Right? I was just having a conversation last night with a family. Right? I had an event in Palm Beach. One of the families there said, Avi, please come over and talk to our family. Talk to our grandchildren. And at the end of talking to the grandchildren, I said, you know what, guys? Your guys are going to be okay. Your grandchildren are okay. Because you're doing a good job of instilling the story of the Jewish people in the land of Israel as victors already. And your children, your grandparents, parents, they're also passing that along to them. So even though they are surrounded by people in their institutions, educational institutions, that they know they can't talk out loud with, they're not being impacted with. So keep it up. You're doing a good job. But not many students out there have parents or grandparents able or knowledgeable enough to give over our true story of being victors and being proud of who we are today as a nation, overcoming so much to be where we are today. So now let's go into the missiles, the miracles. All right, very quickly, I'm going to give you 3 miraculous stories to help you understand even more. Miracle number 1, and it's not easy to internalize this miracle. I'm already telling you that, okay? For some people, it's really hard to internalize. Pre-October 7th, the Jewish people and the Jewish state of Israel had an enemy. That enemy was called the Islamic regime of Iran. That Islamic regime of Iran has been investing trillions of dollars over decades to destroy, annihilate, massacre every single Jew in the Jewish state of Israel and non-Jew. They just want to destroy Israel. Israel was non-Jewish citizens. They don't care. They were willing to kill the Muslims, the Christians, the Jews. They don't care. They just want to destroy Israel. They even have a clock in Tehran, a clock down to the destruction of Israel. They've been investing trillions of dollars over decades in ballistic missiles, in nuclear missiles, in the Hezbollah militia in Lebanon, in the Hamas militia in Gaza, in the Houthi militia in Yemen, in militias in Iraq, in militias in Syria. They were planning for decades a 7-front or 8 or 9-front surprise attack to destroy the Jewish state of Israel and kill all of us. You want to know what the miracle is? That I'm standing here today. That's the miracle, folks. The fact that only, all right, and take a second and internalize because it's not easy. The fact that only 1,200 plus innocent, beautiful soul Jews and some non-Jews were massacred and mass raped and mutilated and burned on October 7th is a miracle that it wasn't 10 million citizens. That's a miracle, folks. But guess what? The narrative for 2+ years has been focused just on the devastation and the tragedy. Has anyone told you that this is a miracle we should be thankful for? Every single moment. You know how your lives would be different if Iran had succeeded on October 7th in destroying all of Israel? If you think anti-Semitism is bad today, oh, do I have a Brooklyn Bridge to sell you if you think it wouldn't be worse if Iran had won that war and destroyed Israel? Lives for Jews would be hell right now if Israel would have been destroyed. So we have to be thankful. And again, only God knows why Yahya Sinwar, the head of Hamas in Gaza, decided, despite the billions of dollars of investment to be part of the Iranian strategy, funded by Qatar also, to destroy Israel, that he decided to attack without picking up the phone and first calling Iran to say, are we on? Are you going to join? Should I wait a day? Nothing. He decided to do it on his own. We don't know why, but folks, that's a miracle. We would be destroyed had he not decided to do it on its own. That's miracle number 1. Miracle number 2, for whatever reason, the Israeli army was not prepared that day to do what it's trained to do. And I'm a proud Israeli soldier. I grew up in New York City. I'm so blessed to have grown up in the 70s and 80s when there were no screens. Because when I was bored, I used to pick up a book and read. And I loved history. And I loved history books. And I read about George Washington and Benjamin Franklin and the American Civil War and the slave trade and the American Revolution and Jewish history and Holocaust history and biblical history. I loved history. And because I loved history, already as a 13, 14-year-old boy, I knew how blessed I was to live in a generation the Jewish people had our ancestral homeland back to us with our own army. And my dream as a 13, 14-year-old already was to move back home to Israel and to serve in the Israeli army. So for someone like me, whose pride in being a Jew is still at 52 years old, being able to have stopped serving in the reserves 12 years ago, because they usually stop serving at 12, but I continue to serve in the reserves, as I tell my mother, who goes, why? I say, Ima, because I don't look at service in the IDF as something mandatory, only to do because I have to. I look at it as a privilege that our ancestors for 2,000 years did not have. And so long as I'm added value to my unit, I'm continuing and not giving up on this privilege. So for someone like me, who we train in order not to have to fight, right? The way you prevent war is by scaring your enemy not to want to wage war against you. But we're trained to be prepared to fight if we have to. So for someone like me to know that the army that I serve in was not prepared and unfortunately failed on October 7th in so many ways, which is a whole different talk, a whole different issue to talk about, it's devastating. But what's the second miracle? The second miracle is that me and my wife are raising our children in Israel today, in the air of a Jewish spirit that does not exist anywhere else in the world. And our children are part of the most unbelievable generation of proud Jewish warriors that we haven't had since biblical times. Right-wingers, left-wingers, religious, not as religious, secular, yes, even ultra-Orthodox, even though we want more, but yes, even ultra-Orthodox. We are all serving in this war. And on October 7th, many of them, some with a uniform, some without a uniform, some with a gun, some without a gun, they ran down to the Gaza border and fought Hamas and stopped Hamas. No organized command chain, no orders, no organized units, individual King David-like warriors that exist in your Jewish nation state of Israel today. That's miracle number 2. Now let's go to miracle number 3. Israel survived probably the most devastating attack in modern history. And it's just dealt with as if it's normal. We had tens of thousands of ballistic missiles rained down on us for 12 days. We're a tiny country smaller than New Jersey. And I'm still standing here in front of you. Israel, we only had around 20 some odd people killed. Each soul is a loss. We were supposed to be devastated. Devastated. Also probably annihilated. And one of the scientists who worked on the missile defense systems was interviewed in the media a few days after the 12 days of being shot at by Iran. And he said, "You don't understand. I don't know how many scientists are here." He goes, "The statistical error was that it's not supposed to work as well as it actually worked. It worked much better than it was supposed to work. It's miraculous." And not only that, there wasn't one missile defense system, because Iran has all these different types of missiles. So we have all these different types of missile defense systems. And the scientist, not Avi Abel, the scientist to the media says, they all work together, coordinated. It's like totally miraculous. What is your name? Mitch. Mitch took the words exactly out of my mouth. You cannot be a Jew today and internalize the miracles, and these are just 3 of many miracles. I told you 3 of like the big ones, of 2+ years of war, and ignore that God has saved us. You cannot ignore that. And again, I don't care how religious, I don't care. Go to any army general, any military strategist, and ask them, does this war make sense where Israel is today? Not only not defeated on October 7th, not only not annihilated on October 7th, but in the strongest geopolitical situation that the Jewish people have ever been since biblical times. Ask a military strategist if that makes any sense, and to break down the military strategy of Israel, that someone else can implement it in their war. You know what they're going to say to you? No way. Makes no sense. Makes no sense. As religious Jews, we celebrate the holiday of Hanukkah, right? The holiday of Hanukkah didn't take 8 days. The Maccabees fought the Syrian Greeks for close to 3 decades until the end of the Hanukkah story. And even after the end of the fighting, they didn't immediately start an 8-day holiday. It took years until the Jewish people adopted the holiday of celebrating 8 days to celebrate the miracles of Hanukkah. Then we go to Purim. The miracles of Mordechai and Esther. We were almost supposed to be annihilated then. When we were saved, the rabbis didn't say the next day, we just experienced a miracle. Let's celebrate. No, it took a few years until they realized and internalized the miracles and then set up a holiday that today we all celebrate. I promise you this. Probably in our lifetimes, I definitely hope in our lifetimes, there's going to be a new holiday the Jewish people are going to be celebrating. Because what we just experienced and are still experienced are even greater miracles than the Hanukkah story and the Purim story. And not enough attention is being given to this for us to rise up as a people, to feel proud as a people, to internalize how blessed we are as a people, to bless God every day to be a Jew in this generation. Who's telling this story to our children and grandchildren facing the worst of the growing Jew-hating anti-Semitism today? They are left as orphans without anything of the tools to deal with and come out of that standing up proud with the truth. So that's where I come in the Pulse of Israel. If you like our videos, subscribe and donate today.
Pulse of Israel, frontline videos from the Holy Land. Support our work by donating today.